All right. Welcome back to a new episode. Before we get started, thank you guys as always for the constant support. We love seeing the comments, liking the video, all that good stuff. As I usually do, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're subscribed, awesome. Again, you guys are awesome for doing that. If you're not, hit that button, hit the little notification bell right next to it. It's going to let you know when we post new videos every week, usually twice a week. So make sure you do that. Now, let's go ahead and get into it. So today we're going to do a preview for probably the biggest game of the year for OU outside of the Big 12 championship, or as we know it, the Sooner Invitational. This week
Potentially
is
Bedlam with Oklahoma State ranked number 10. I think they're 11 now.
Yeah, they're almost in the
12.
top 10, but
Yeah, 11 or 12.
this game's always a close game. Red River coming up this week against 21 ranked Texas. They're coming in 4-1 with their only loss being to Arkansas, who I don't know. They might be good. I don't know. They got destroyed by Georgia, but Georgia's obviously great. Anyways, back to topic. We're coming in undefeated, so it's got a lot of implications here for the Sooners, more so I would say than the Longhorns as of now, because we still control our destiny. I know we're only halfway through the season, but you got to think forward into playoffs. If we can get this win, we're really, I would say, kind of smooth sailing until Bedlam with how OSU has looked so far. But for this week, I think the biggest key is going to be how we can stop the running game. But I'll let Brandon get into it and his thoughts before I go too deep.
It's like we mentioned before we started recording. It's not even necessarily to stop it because as much as we hate to say it, Bijan Robinson's a damn good football player. And it's unfortunate that Sooners' top 10 ranked rush defense is going to be put to the absolute test Saturday. And it's not that we need to just complete, like, if the goal, I think, is to, keep him under 80 yards or 75 yards, I think that's you're kind of wasting your time, because I think the kid's that special, and I think he's going to get. I mean, what do you have? 35 carries against TCU or something like that. He's going to get 30 carries, 25 carries plus. So the goal needs to be not to stop him, because that might be, you don't do that, but contain him. Don't let him beat you on with like 25, 30-yard pops. If he gets 6 on first down, and then you can get him to, like a 1-yard gain on second, so 3rd and 3, or even a no-yard gain, 3rd and 4, make him pass, get incomplete pass, boom, punt. And if he gets a couple first downs rushing, he's going to. Don't let him break off 35, 40-yard runs, because that's where we're going to be in trouble.
Yep, and I think we've got the defensive line to do it. This going into this week, it seems like the game plan is going to be very similar to last week against Kansas State. Against Duspan, he had not a great game on the ground. His explosive plays came off of catching the ball. He had over 100 yards with doing that, so he had a pretty good game against us. And our linebackers, I think Grinch has been very angry about the execution on that and making sure we're covering him. So I think this week, not only will he be a little bit more intense, but the players know we can't let Bijan beat us, especially in the passing game. The guys in the trenches are going to do their job to make sure he's not breaking off these insane runs. Now, can you stop him in the passing game? That's the biggest question. So far this season, he's got a total of, he's got a total of 10 catches for 167 yards and 2 touchdowns. So pretty good, especially for a running back. Now on the ground,
the average is really good.
Yeah, on the ground he's got
plays.
You're right. So on the ground right now, he's on the season. He's got 105 yards, 105 carries, 652 yards with 7 touchdowns. And like Brandon said last week, 35 of those came against TCU with 216 yards and 2 touchdowns. So obviously the game was huge against TCU, but this week we can't let him get. Go ahead.
And this is going to sound weird. In some way, that's almost positive to me, just because what you said, 216 yards, 2 touchdowns. Despite all of that, that game was close. And Texas Christian wasn't scoring a lot of points. I think, what was the final? I don't remember the exact final of the game, but I remember it being, was it one score? It was,
It might have been. I'll double check.
yeah, it was a pretty close game. All things considered, and they still give up 216 yards and 2 touchdowns, which, it circles back to the point that we were making going into the show is, if we don't give him that, I think we're going to be in a great spot. If he has 25 carries for 120 yards and maybe 1 touchdown, that's half the production he did against TCU. And if our offense can put points on the board like they did against Kansas State, I think that bodes very, very well for the Sooners Saturday.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to put it past the Texas offensive staff to pretty much have a game plan similar to what a Tennessee Titans do with Derrick Henry, and just feeding Bijan the ball as much as possible, especially in the ground game, and just trying to exhaust our defense and pretty much do what everyone has done so far against the Sooners is it try to just keep the ball, win time of possession ultimately, and make sure that Spencer can't get the ball that much. Last week, he only had 3 possessions in the first half, and we did score every time, but our defense was able to hold down K-State, forcing a turnover in their first drive and then holding him to 10 points in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can have a similar first half to that, and then frustrating Texas to force them to pass the ball in the second half, I don't think they're going to go away from their game plan first 2 quarters. But if we can force them to force Casey to throw the ball in the second half, especially in fourth quarter situations, that's when this game is going to, I think, favor the Sooners a lot more, because if they're feeling comfortable enough to continue feeding Bijan to get 35 carries again, not only is this dude probably going to at some point crack a big one against us, because it's hard to hold up against other big people trying to push you away from their running back, but this dude's talented enough that he can probably find a hole somewhere. So if we can hold him to like 25 carries and 80 yards, I think the 80, defense did.
That would be a phenomenal game for us. I mean, that is, what is that, like 3 yards a carry, less than that? 25.
Yeah, it'd be less than 3 yards a carry.
Yeah, that's a tall task. We pull that off, I'd be very content. I was even saying, give him 115 on 25 carries, which is, not great, but that is just kind of the whole thing about, like, against Texas Christian, they played a close game, and he still had 216 yards and 2 touchdowns. If we just get half of that production, I think it bodes well.
Definitely. Now, we kind of touched on, it's kind of been the theme of our shows when we're doing previews, forcing quarterbacks to beat us. Thompson hasn't, he's good, but he hasn't been great. Last game against TCU, he went 12 for 22 with 142 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick on the season so far. As a reminder, he did come in as a start. I believe it was their second game or third game after they benched Hudson Card, which Sark has said they don't plan on redshirting Card. So far this year, Casey Thompson has 54 completions on 76 attempts, 707 yards, 71% completion percentage, 9 touchdowns, 3 picks. He's also been sacked 3 times. So, pretty good, but not anything amazing. I think our defense can keep him at bay, and they do struggle with the deep ball. That's something that Sark and the Texas media has really been covering. They just haven't been able to hit deep passes. So I think with DTY probably coming back, we're going to have a lot of opportunity for picks. I mean, last week we dropped a few, and Key Lawrence almost came up with one. So I think I would expect our defense to create a couple turnovers this week, at least a fumble and hopefully a pick.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that happening, but I also think that, just overall, as we've gone on through the season, it's kind of a theme in our previews too. Is that this is the best offense we're going to see all season so far. This is the best. I think it's pretty easy to say this right here is the best offense that we're going to face at least this point of the season. They did hang 70 on Tech. Casey Thompson's not a bad player. Bijan Robinson's a star. But yeah, limit Bijan, like we're just going to say over and over again. Don't limit Bijan. Take away the big plays, the deep balls, shit like that. Keep it methodical, and I think this is a game Oklahoma should win if they do everything that they're supposed to do.
Definitely. Something notable for the Longhorns, they did lose an offensive lineman. I think he was a starter for their line, Denzel Okafor. He is out for the season, so they will be at least inserting someone new, probably starting for the first time this year. I'm not 100% sure, but I did want to check on their injury report, and they do have a DB coming back 100% from his injury, Josh Thompson. Don't know how great he is or if he started, but if they got covered, I'm assuming he's at least a rotational player. So, I think our defensive line does have a little bit more of an edge now that they're having to replace one of their offensive linemen.
Yeah, but we're still short on the D line. Like as we mentioned off before we started recording, Jalen Redmond's not going to play Saturday. Woody Washington's obviously still out. Like we're short a couple of big players on that defense. So it's just so important for me. Just the only thing I care about this week is, it's OU Texas, and we obviously hate Texas, and we want to beat them so bad. But at the same time, like, unfortunately, no matter how good or bad they are, it seems in this rivalry game, you're gonna get the best out of Texas and vice versa. Like if Texas is 0-6 and we're 6-0, this game is still gonna have me nervous. And going back to us being a little shorthanded on defense, if this is a game we win 37-30, 37-33, 37-34, I'm not gonna. I'll be popping bottles. Like it won't matter to me. Like just win.
Yeah, no, this is definitely.
That's the theme we've gone with a bunch too. Just win.
Yeah, I think this, and more so this game than any other, I would say, during the season and even looking forward, as if we can just come up with a win, I don't care how ugly or pretty it is this week, because this game, like you said, we could be coming in undefeated and they could be coming in completely defeated, and it's still somehow going to be a close game. Just the environment kind of probably help, puts that situation in play, it being somewhat of a neutral site. But it'll be fun to watch. So now that you mentioned some of the defensive players, let's move over to our offense and how we could probably find a way to dominate the Longhorn defense this week. So I think it's fair to say last week our offense probably had the best game that they've had so far this year.
It's pretty easy without a doubt.
They finally established the run. If you guys watched our preview last week for Kansas State and even our recap, Brandon and I talked about in our preview that if Kennedy Brooks gets the opportunity to be the premier back and he takes advantage of it, he would probably going to get 100 yards. We came pretty darn close. He got 91 yards, I believe. So nothing in the air.
91 and one touch, I think.
Yeah,
I really think of one touchdown, but yeah, he looked like he looked everything the part that we talked about. Like it seems, I don't understand what took so long for us to do that, because if two drunk idiots like us can be like, hey, we should probably play Kennedy Brooks as the feature back, because when he's in the game he does really well, and then all of a sudden he becomes a feature back and he doesn't really. I mean that's something I'll never understand. It's almost, I don't know, but yeah, it was encouraging to see.
Something Brum did remind me of during the recap of Kansas State is Kennedy Brooks is coming back from his year off of COVID. So maybe the coaches were trying to slowly integrate him back into the offense, but it seems like it took way too long and they were putting games in too much of a bad situation, really, with trying to force Eric Gray to be the number one back. But it seems like hopefully what we saw last week is going to just be what's going to continue for the rest of the season. And Kennedy Brooks is going to start getting 15 to 20 touches every game. Eric Gray is definitely going to be part of the offense. We've almost, I think every year that Lincoln's been the play caller for the offense, we've always had at least two backs, sometimes even three that play. So Eric Gray is definitely going to be part of this offense still. He's just going to go back to that role that we've been talking about him being, just a change of pace back, probably more so of the pass catching back.
And he's elusive out of the backfield. Like the thing that is such a great thing with him is he's a great change of pace from Kennedy Brooks, just totally different play styles. But if you get him a swing pass out in space, he's going to do something nasty with it. He's going to make three dudes miss and get 15, 20 yards. I mean, I agree. He's definitely going to be a part of the offense. Overall, offensively, I missed the recap, but like how good was it? If the offensive line, I know there's obviously still issues with the offensive line and there's still things to fix up, but for the most part, Spencer Rattler was upright against Kansas State, and look what happened when he's upright and he has time and he can survey the field and throw the ball to. He was perfect that game with that one blemish that, and again he horrible deep throw on third down. Intercept. I think he was going for Mike Woods. I can't remember exactly what he was going for, but you know I'm talking about the interception. That was a bad throw. But outside of that throw, I thought he was perfect Saturday. And that I think comes back to the offensive line finally giving him time to be the guy we know.
Yeah, I think touching on the offensive line, and I mentioned it in the recap, we're starting to. I think that the coaches have found their number one group, and they're just gonna stick with it. The coaches know, and we've been saying it, but they know better than us. Those guys need to come together as a unit, clean up their communication. Obviously, clean up some of the penalties that they had last week, and some of it is coming down to communication, especially with false starts. So, I think we're only going to see better from them every week. Touching on what the UT defense is bringing in, they have the number 93 rushing defense and the number 69 passing defense. So I think Kennedy's going to have a great game against these guys if we keep feeding him the ball, especially to start off the game. Not only will that help our offensive line, probably keep Spencer upright more and keep him clean, make sure there's no stain to that jersey at the end of the game. But it's also going to make their jobs easier as well, because if we can keep that defense guessing, we can take advantage of Spencer's arm, because we've got the weapons, like we've been saying all year. The weapons are there. We just need to put it together, and it seems like it's going to start clicking here soon.
What was it? 7 out of 9 possessions last week against Kansas State, and one of those was the kneel downs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that was just, it was so encouraging to see, and I think if that rolls over into this week, and if that rolls over into this week and we're scoring the ball like that again, we're scoring 37. I think we win again. And I mean, it could be close, but I think if we score on them at the end of the day, our defense is better than theirs, and we will make the extra stop, even if it's just one extra stop. That wins a football game. If we have, if each team gets 10 possessions, let's say, and we score 7 times and they score 6, that wins.
We scored one more than them. That's all you need. Mm-hmm. More points. You need the most points in a game to win the game. So I think that statistics wise, Oklahoma's got the advantage in most scenarios. The only one we don't have an advantage in is defense against the pass. And I'm not too scared of Casey Thompson just blowing the top off this defense. Again, containing Bijan. And then for the offensive side, just making sure that we're scoring like we did last week. Hopefully touchdowns every drive, but it's all right. I'm all right with settling for field goals as long as we're stopping the Longhorns from scoring. But to wrap it up, as we always do, what are your keys to the game? Who are the guys that you expect to have big games against the Longhorns this week?
Hold Bijan under 125 rushing, and score at least 30. I really think it comes. It sounds easier than it is, but I mean that's what it is. If you can hold Bijan under 120, 125, and you hang 30 on him, like I said, our defense is at the end of the day better than theirs, and we will come up with extra stops to win. So Kennedy Brooks it's gonna fall on him again. I'm gonna hammer him for the guy to watch on offense, because I think so much of this offense relies upon us getting a good run game going, and I think you and I agree Kennedy Brooks is the guy for that. So Kennedy Brooks / the offensive line, just pick up where you left off last week. Although last week wasn't perfect for the offensive line, light years better than what we've seen so far. Defensively, hopefully Stutzman can play, and that guy is free. I mean, he might be the best linebacker on this team, because which is weird, because David Agwegu was a monster last year, and I feel like he hasn't even played this year. So I don't really know what's going on there. Defensively, it's a collective effort of the whole front 7, front 8.
Yeah. So I agree 100% with your keys to the game. We definitely need to score 30 plus, hopefully 40. and definitely containing Bijan to a very limited amount of yards because he's going to get all the touches that he can handle. So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we can contain him. For my keys, I was going to go Kennedy Brooks, but just to do something different, I'm going to go with Mario Williams. I think that guy is going to he's going to explode. This is the Red River game where he kind of solidifies himself as a top weapon for the Sooners, for Spencer, and
Be okay
maybe
with
he has
it.
a CD kind of play. You know,
Well, it
the
was
Red
nice to see
River
Marvin
game.
Mims last week too. He came on a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think it's going to be a receiver that's hopefully going to start just blowing the top off the Longhorn defense, getting some big plays, and I think Mario's going to be the one to do so. For the defense, I'm going to just go with what you said. If Stutzman is playing, then I'm going with Stutzman. I think him coming back, just the way he plays football, we covered it in his Who Dat earlier in the off season, but that dude has a nose for the ball. He's going to break on the ball as soon as he sees it. He sees it leave the quarterback's hands. And if our defensive line can do what they have been doing in the run game and stopping the run, then Casey is going to have to get that ball out super fast for Danny not to catch up to Bijan before he gets to the line of scrimmage because that dude plays hard. The way he plays football, again, I've said it every time we talk about him. He looks exactly like K9 did when he played for OU. Maybe he's not as talented quite yet, but I believe he's going to be just as talented by the time he ends his Oklahoma career.
Then we haven't covered yet the season. Last week, as you mentioned before we started tonight, is we probably should have. They take the 13-point lead, and Kansas State gets that garbage kickoff return touchdown to prevent us from covering. This week, I believe the spread is only Oklahoma -3. This has to be the week. I don't imagine it being a 1 or 2 point game. I see us winning by at least a field goal, which I guess would push. So we need to win by 4. This is the week we finally cover. I'm calling it right now. Let's go with like a 35-27, 35-30 type game. I think it's going to be close, but I think we cover.
So I'm going to say like 40-28.
God, I hope you're right. I would be thrilled if that was the outcome.
I think our defense, here's the thing, our DBs right now, I think we're still the biggest piece we're missing for the defensive backs is Woody Washington. But the return of DTY is going to help a lot, especially with Casey and UT really struggling with hitting the deep ball. I think those safeties are a lot better than people are giving them respect for. They're going to break up a lot of passes. Again, hopefully get a pick, maybe 2. That'd be the dream. But our defensive line is one of the best in the country, if not the best in the country. And I know they can do their job. Nick Bonito, IT are going to force Casey to make mistakes. They have done that all year so far. They're going to keep doing it. And Perrion is still an enormous body that's going to help to stop the run. So I don't think this Texas Longhorn offense is going to be as explosive as they have in their previous games. And they've lost once already. We have proof of how they can lose. We still haven't lost. We can say whatever we want about the Sooners. You know, we have our criticisms, but at the end of the day, we're 5-0. No one has a formula to beat us yet. There is a formula to beat Texas right now.
We get past Texas, get to 6-0. As you mentioned, the schedule lightens up a little bit until we go to the at Baylor game is always stressful. Iowa State comes to Norman, which Iowa State doesn't look great this year, but that game will still stress me out. And then the last game of the season in Stillwater, which obviously that game is a game we seemingly never lose if you just look at the overall record. But they, with Stillwater, with Oklahoma State being number 11 or whatever this year, that could be tough too. But the important thing, get to 6-0. And as you mentioned, the defense is good, a really good defensive line. It's not even full strength yet. We'd love to have Jalen Red run the defensive line, I promise. And that isn't far off, I don't think. If we could just stay perfect, let these guys come back, it'll click. Offensively, just do what you did last week. That's all. Yeah. That's really all I care about this week, is to see.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, that's it. We're gonna wrap it up here. As always, if you've made it this far, you're awesome. Thank you so much. Make sure that you're going down to the comment section. Leave us your score predictions. Let us know who your key players are for this game. You know, we want to hear what you say. As always, we'll try to respond as quickly as we can if we can. Again, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It's the end of the video. Hit the subscribe, close us out, and then you're done for the day. Turn on the
You're done.
notification
You don't
bell.
have to do anything the rest of your day after
Yeah,
that.
just do that. Go ahead and tell your boss we told you work is over, and go on
Just
about your
get
day.
the hell out of there. Yeah, you're fine.
But as soon as you do that, you're good to go. And I think we're done here as well. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time.